Imagine a world where guest communication is instant, personalized, accurate, and most importantly, automated.
It's gonna read all your past conversations once you connect HostBuddy. So it's really gonna learn from you. It's gonna sound like you. It's gonna send emojis if you send emojis. And so it's an extension of you, and it's not just.
Jay Ulrich built HostBuddy to transform how hosts operate. Could this be the missing piece in your business?
Is making sure that we're using AI personalization to really engage the guest and make sure that they're always having a positive experience. And so we're constantly tracking that using conversational analysis.
AI in short-term rentals is not the future. It's already here. But how do you balance high-tech efficiency with the personal touch that guests expect?
Having that basically unlimited testing ground was really valuable for us to make sure that our AI was going to sound the most human-like on the market.
I'm 31-time Airbnb superhost Jason Muth. I worked in the media business for over 25 years, and in 2016, I started my Chapter 2 in the world of short-term rentals. Since then, I've welcomed over 5,000 guests and their furry friends to our homes. We're here to show you how to make a smart stay. Now, an excellent conversation with Jay Ulrich. So Jay, what's going on? Welcome to Smart Stay Show.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I appreciate you having me.
I legit slid into your DMs and I saw you you have your own podcast, and you had somebody on who is a mutual friend of ours, someone in our short-term rental mastermind, Mark Palmerian. I'm like, oh, he's talking to Mark, all right? And I started watching your stuff, and I'm like, HostBuddy, like, what is this thing? Like, I got to dig into this. And then once I realized this is a pretty cool tool for short-term rental hosts, I was like, I got to get him on the show. So I reached out to you, and here we are recording. So I really appreciate your hopping on.
Yeah, very excited.
Yeah, we'll intro Rory as well. So Rory Gill is our resident real estate attorney and short-term rental legal host expert. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jason, and I'm excited to dive into the conversational AI world a little bit more. I've been admittedly a late adopter in my businesses for some of these tools, but these natural language conversational tools will really transform a lot of your business, and the short-term rentals is no different. So I'm excited to have this conversation today with Jay at HostBuddy.
So this is Jay Ulrich. Jay is a seven-figure short-term rental co-host. He is the CEO and co-founder of HostBuddy.ai. So Jay, you started as one of us, right? You're out there grinding, welcoming guests, dealing with resolutions, building up your business, and then somehow you pivoted into HostBuddy. So let's talk about your journey first, and then we'll dig into how that inspired HostBuddy and what really HostBuddy is.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely take a lot of pride in being a host myself because I think that's the most important part about, operating and selling a software in the space where you are the ideal customer profile. So it's been really important for us, and I've been really involved in short-term rentals since beginning of 2021. I actually was a civil engineer before, and I was looking for a way to start my own business and came across Airbnb rentals as something that would potentially be a way out. Partnered with my good friend Sam at the time, and we started Select Stays, which is our management company. Scaled that up to about 9 properties, mostly under rental arbitrage in the first year. End of 2021, we both quit our jobs and started just scaling as much as we could. So middle of 2023, that brought us up to around 40 units under management. And I think a lot of that success came from trying to automate all the tasks that we typically dealt with. So at the very beginning, Sam and I were cleaning all the properties ourselves, running there from on our lunch breaks from our 9 to 5 jobs, and trying to manage all that. Since then, I mean, obviously we found cleaning management software and operations management and communication tools and things like that. So all of those things were really interesting to me, and I really like to optimize the systems in our business. I love working with people. So a lot of times people think, if you're working with AI, you have to fire all your people on your team, and that's not the case. I think if you make your team really efficient, you can ensure that you don't overhire and you trim it down to where it makes sense. But for us, we were really just looking for a way to automate our communications for overnight, because our guests were always looking for responses to little things overnight, like, hey, can I get a late checkout tomorrow? Can I get some more towels? How do I work the AC? How do I work the TV? Things like that. And if you're not there to respond, it can be really challenging. And I think that's something that's changing in the industry a lot right now, where guests are expecting a lot more instant replies from their hosts. And I think that's great. I think with increased competition, that's something that you should expect. So yeah, long story short, we decided to build a tool ourselves because we couldn't find anything on the market that would plug into our system. So that's where HostBuddy came about. We decided to start using AI for our communications, and we really started by just sending out a link to all of our guests saying, "Hey, you can go and chat with our little chat bot, and it'll answer any of your questions." And that's how it started. It was like an external link. We never at the beginning, we were just like, let's see if it can be effective. And we had a really good response from our guests that were staying at our properties saying like, this is great. Like it really helped me go and find something specifically in the property. It was late at night or something like that. So it's cool seeing all the different use cases and taking it to now 2025. It's a full blown software that integrates with 10 or 11 property management systems. And we have thousands of properties on our platform with guests being taken care of 24/7. So it's been an exciting journey.
You took my next question, which was, why don't you just use some stuff that's off the shelf? People like us, we look to see what tools are out there. I'm not out there developing tools myself, but your brain thinks differently, where you're saying, I don't like any of the stuff that's out there. So we're just going to do our own version of this.
Yeah, and I think there's other options out there. Some of those being maybe AI coming through your property management system. Some of the PMSs out there will now do some version of AI. But I think what we really wanted to do is take our experience as hosts and apply that to the AI, because we knew that if we were behind it, we could basically test all of the responses that are coming through and make sure that it's responding exactly how we would want ourselves to be represented. We're super hosts on Airbnb. We, pride ourselves in having really good responses to our guests and providing good experiences. So, having that basically unlimited testing ground was really valuable for us, to make sure that our AI was going to sound the most human-like on the market.
I mean, you're taking a point that I think I make in every single podcast episode, but I'd like to say that doing like some of the ground level work yourself is really important up to a point. You want to do the work so that you can intelligently hire it out and delegate the work and come up with systems for it. But you've taken that to a bit of an extreme here, where you've built a huge AI driven system to communicate with your guests. Um, Not all of us can do that, and not we all shouldn't all do that. I actually want to ask about someone who's adopting this for the first time. So taking the AI technology and adopting it. How can somebody adopt it in a way where they can learn about it, trust it, and use it to its full potential instead of just turning the button on one day and going, full throttle into AI?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the cool thing about the industry right now is I think a lot of people are beginning to trust AI a little bit more. I think about a year ago, my answer would be a little different, and people were, a little bit more like, no, I want to make sure that just humans always in control of everything, and people are starting to realize the capabilities of AI, which is really great. And I think our conversion rates are very high once people start using our product, which is awesome because they really see like this isn't just a chat GPT that's spitting out a long answer with, a bunch of language that doesn't sound like me. It's analyzed all my conversations and things like that. So there's a few different ways that we make sure that, there's some training wheels before you really start hit the ground and going. And from a user perspective, you're able to test all of their responses basically in a workbench scenario for each property. So you can ask it a bunch of questions about, like how do I get the property? Where's the parking? I can't get this to work. I'm locked out. Like all these different scenarios, and you can see exactly how it's going to respond with that AI. And so that's a really good way to test to make sure that all your information that you provided is accurate. And that's something that I can get into as well, but it's taking all of the details and data from your property management system. So all that data is going to be accurate. But you can also add additional details. You can add welcome documents, SOPs, all these different things, and it's going to scrape all that information, create a knowledge base, and be able to use that to respond to your guests. So typically, if it's not responding properly, it's usually because you haven't provided enough information. But generally, I mean, over 90% of the responses or guest messages that come through will be able to be responded to with that data that's coming directly just from your PMS and also taken from previous conversations that you've had with your guests.
Are you talking to individual hosts? Are you talking to folks that, co-host larger companies? Like, what are you seeing in terms of who wants to adopt HostBuddy, and what are you learning from those 2 different buckets of individuals?
Yeah, I like that question a lot because our initial mission was to really reach as many of the short-term rental operators as possible. So now we have hosts with hundreds of properties on our platform, and we also have hosts with one or two. I think the only requirement is that you use a property management system because that's how our messages get sent through and received. But nowadays, a lot of people are on property management systems. I would say well over half of the hosts in the STR space. So it's really great having all of those partnerships with the PMSs to be able to provide our software. But specifically for the smaller hosts, I would say those between 1 and 10, and that's relative. I think 5 to 10 is still a good portfolio size, but on the scale of maybe we have 100 properties here and then 1 to 10 at the bottom, those hosts are able to. They're typically maybe they have one virtual assistant, maybe they don't have anyone helping them at all. Maybe they only have a couple properties and they're running it themselves, and that's totally fine. But now they want to have that additional coverage where they're not having to be interrupted at dinner with their family and friends and have to answer specific questions all day. This is a perfect solution for them where they can pay $8 to $10 per month per listing, super affordable, just to get that AI coverage. And now they have 24/7 automated guest communications. So that's the direct impact that I see we're having on those smaller hosts. Typically, once you get past like I don't know, 8 or 9 properties, you see people starting to employ virtual assistants. So they have people that are on their team. They continue growing, and it's great. I mean, I love talking to hosts of any size just to understand what their problems are because we really want to focus on solving real issues in the SDR space. So I mean, we talk to people who have 50, 60, 70 properties, and sometimes they have 5 or 6 VAs that are working on their team. And they have people, VAs that are covering them for hours that they can substitute for just using AI. And so now they're saving thousands of dollars per month. They can allocate that towards doing other tasks and really improving their business versus just maintaining it. I think that's something that's really important. For my company specifically, we still use 2 VAs during the day. Only one is working at a time, but they're not messaging the guests directly. So HostBuddy's taking care of all the messaging. If there's ever an issue that comes up where HostBuddy can't resolve, it'll shoot a notification out to our team on Slack or via text or email, and then they know that they can hop in. So they're really just on call, but now that frees them up to completely focus on, revenue generating activities, making sure that our listings are looking good and making sure that our calendars are booked and that everything is coordinated. So putting them on the phones and being able to coordinate maintenance and do all those things, it can be really challenging when you have them focusing on the repetitive messages that are coming through. So we've seen a big improvement in our business in particular, in communication and just production. We're still onboarding properties in 2024, 2025. We have another several units that we're building into our portfolio soon. So that's all because of our automation practices and having HostBuddy really run all of our communications.
Yeah, we're at a position with our business where we do have a VA working with us, and then we're about to hire a second VA. And there are questions that I have saying like, boy, can something like HostBuddy just take over what VAs would do? But, I don't fully trust the AI out of my current PMS just yet, although it's pretty good and getting better. It's like 85% usually really good, and then 15% kind of wildly wrong. So, that's why I think a human does need to be nurturing this a little bit. And we're just using native, and I'll say it, we're using native AI that's inhospitable, which is the PMS that we use. And I'm sure all these intelligence systems, yours included, are just get better over time as you learn more about the tone, the person, the details, that kind of thing. But going back to talking about like structuring a business, a lot of people who are listening to this show are individual operators, folks that have 1, 2, 3 properties. Maybe you're just starting out and you want to get that first property. But we definitely have some folks that are building up co-hosting businesses as well. And I do think VAs kind of fit into everything. Like, you don't just have to have 10, 15 properties to qualify for a VA. Some people might want to have VAs that assist their lives, right? There's VAs that do more than just communicate with guests on short-term rental sites. There's VAs that organize inboxes and do lots of great things. One of our VAs is listening to this right now because he's our podcast producer and does a fantastic job as our podcast producer. And I've always tried to find something else for our VAs to do alongside all the work with the short-term rentals. Meaning, if something comes in with one of our rentals, a guest issue, a maintenance issue, drop everything and deal with that. That's kind of the way that we operate. Like, that takes priority to everything else. But there's the everything else that you alluded to as well that goes into running a business that our remote teams or our teams here in the US could then take care of if a lot of the guest communication that is repetitive can be taken over by a tool like yours. So I agree with you. I don't see this as a replacement for running staff or VAs. I see it as a way of handling the majority of the questions that come in that can get handled, like by some type of AI or knowledge base, and then having your team nurture that, make sure it's running correctly, but then also do something else.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a really great point. And I mean, it's gonna read all your past conversations once you connect HostBuddy, so it's gonna learn from you. It's gonna sound like you. It's gonna send emojis if you send emojis. And so it's an extension of you, and it's not just a general AI that's being sent back. Just you know a base tone message. It's carefully crafted to sound like a superhost, and then it's tailored on top of that to sound like you, which is really important.
So we're recording this episode during our slow season. So we're taking this opportunity to examine all of our systems that we have in place so that this year we can remove ourselves from a lot of the day to day, meaning that we want to do our best to come up with comprehensive systems that are automated to the best we can. Do you have any general advice on how to automate your business, how to vet particular tools and systems, and kind of put everything together, so everything's working together for your business?
Yeah, I think the really great part about the STR space right now is when you use a property management system, there's typically a lot of options to plug in all these different tools. And so I typically first look for compatibility to make sure that it connects with the existing systems, because if you don't have everything all centralized in one place, it's really complicated for your team to go and make sure, like, for example, if you don't have automated door locks that connect into your PMS and take your guest information and then go automatically generate a code, it makes it really challenging because now you're having somebody else go and generate codes every morning when this could be a completely automated process. So it's something like that. If you have, cleaning management software, just making sure that all the cleans are being updated through your PMS. So that's how I look at it. It's like, how can I have everything in one place so that it's seamless and that I don't have to step in and really manually go in and make these things happen. So, yeah, I think from an operations standpoint, that's what I always look for. All of the tools that I use run through my PMS. I use Hostfully. And I was a hospitable user before, switched to Hostfully once we started scaling for a number of reasons, but it's working well for us, and I think the integrations is really important. So, specifically when you're looking at AI communication, there's a few options out there right now, which is great. And so we have people that come to us from some of our competitors with feedback and saying, this is what I'm looking for. And it's really great working directly with property managers to figure out like what their specific issues are and how we can optimize their operations. But I think that the biggest thing is that you want to make sure that the AI is responding like you would. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. I think like ultimately making sure that everything connects into one place is step one. Especially like if you're at somebody who's starting to scale right now and you're thinking about, oh, I have like all these things in multiple different places. Maybe I should hire somebody to go and take over, generating all these codes and coordinating all these things. There's probably a software that's going to do most of that for you. And so you can avoid having to hire another 1, 2, 3 VAs if you can figure out how to automate all these processes. And that's a lot of what HostBuddy is about too, is making sure that you can slim down and make sure that, everything's controlled in one place. Um, and it's still, maintaining that quality as well. Like you don't want to hand over your communications to an AI if it's not going to sound like you and sound like a super host. So yeah.
How do you deal with like situational, like, like if it could be one or the other answer, like how does an AI say, like, here, let me give you a better example. I'll give you like a concrete example. Okay. Let's say somebody wants to check out late. All right. And you as a host decide the answer is going to be yes or no. And then it's going to be at what time they can check out. But the logic into that might be based on your past dealings with this guest or your cleaner's schedule. Or is there another guest coming that same day or in the future? Where a human might look at all that and then make a determination based on the situation. Like, I don't like this guest, so I'm not gonna let them check out late, could be the answer. Or my cleaner is, very flexible and I have availability that night, so I am gonna let this guest check out late because of that combination of things. Or my cleaner is very rigid with when they're gonna show up, and I wanna be respectful of their time, and I know they're gonna be there that day, so I can't offer it in that situation. Like, does HostBuddy have a way to navigate, the brain that kind of created those situations and the outcomes that a human might be able to give?
Yeah, I love that question because I think that's a perfect example of like you obviously you're living in the business and you understand that, it does take a human to be on top of the decision making ultimately for those little things. But there are parts of that process that we can start to involve AI in. And some of those things being like if we have a same day check-in, don't allow an early check-in or sorry, a late checkout. And so HostBuddy has access to all of your conversation data, all of your property data, all of your reservation data. So looking at your calendar and then all the past conversations. So it's going to use that to respond. So if it's a calendar specific issue with coordination, it's going to have that info so that it can make that decision. But within your property data, you can basically go and customize all of your SOPs to say like, if this, then that, if this, then that. If it doesn't have the, I guess, condition to make that decision, it's going to generate an action item and send that directly to the host to say like, hey, we need to make a decision here and on exactly how to go forth with this. Um, and you can really program it to mm, do whatever you'd like. Our SOPs are typically, we'll offer a late checkout at a specific fee if we don't have somebody checking in that same day and it's within 24 hours. So you can program it to understand that. But yeah, things beyond that, I think, you know, deciding whether or not a specific guest should be able to stay based on their conversation or reviews. That's something that I'd love to implement in HostBuddy in the future. And I think that's like maybe what's next for AI is really being able to take that into account and decide like, okay, this guest based on their language is being a little shady. They're asking kind of weird questions. And right now, HostBuddy has the ability to track guest sentiment, which is really cool because you can use that to basically leverage certain templates that get sent out. So within HostBuddy, let's say a guest had a horrible stay and HostBuddy decides that the guest sentiment is negative. You don't want to go and ask that guest to give you a review afterwards. And a lot of hosts will send out an automated message that says, "Hey, we really enjoyed hosting you. I hope you enjoyed the stay. If you wouldn't mind giving us a 5-star review, we greatly appreciate it." You probably don't want to send that message out to somebody who's had a negative stay. So you can basically set a condition to ensure that that's not sent out to them, and really just make sure that you're touching base with your guests at all times. We're kind of internally coining it the touch points. Our CPO, Sam, is making sure that, we're using AI personalization to really engage the guest and make sure that they're always, having a positive experience. And so we're constantly tracking that using conversational analysis to make sure that, if a guest is having a negative stay, we can reach out to them and ask them, how did your check-in go? Did your travels go okay coming from Houston or something like that? So it's taking all this data and it sounds a lot more personalized than just an automated message going out.
I actually want to ask about like one little thing you said in there, and that is the feature talking about generating an action item, because I think that goes to my question a little while ago where I asked, how can somebody who's new to this adopt it and really trust the system? If I'm hearing you correctly, if HostBuddy encounters something that is truly unprecedented or it just doesn't know the answer to, it'll flag it and notify you that this is a question that deserves human attention. So it's actually doing some of the triage for you. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, exactly. And that was a really important part to make sure that the host is staying in the loop. If you don't have that feature, then, the AI is having all these conversations with your guests, and then you never really know what's going on at your property. So if they check in and they say, "Hey, just want to let you know, like one of the table legs is wobbly. It's okay for now, but maybe just check on it for after the stay." That's something where it gets generated as an action item, and then there's a whole page within HostBuddy where you're able to go and manage those things and make sure that those items get taken care of. And there's a few different ways that you can decide if HostBuddy you can decide if HostBuddy wants is going to respond directly to that message, or if it just doesn't respond at all, or if it says, let me check with my team and get right back to you if it's a question that it doesn't have access to within its knowledge base. So action items are really things that the AI isn't 100% capable of answering, and maybe that's something that somebody asks, "Are there stairs at your property?" And you never included that in your PMS, and it's not in your description or anything like that. And so it'll say, let me check on that, and I'll ask the host and get back to you. It'll send a message. And what's really cool about our Slack integration is you can reply directly into Slack and tell HostBuddy, yes, there are stairs at our property. Tell the guest that, it's not necessarily accessible, ADA accessible or something like that. So it's really cool. You never have to open up your PMS or HostBuddy to go and take action on these action items.
This is so, like, next level. Like, at what point do you feel like this is gonna be a standard for all people that are hosting short-term rentals, versus a lot of the DIY work that happens, which when you have millions of hosts on Airbnb, my hunch is you see that as the opportunity, maybe get acquired by one of these big companies or something like that, and like have your software be involved with everybody, but not knowing any of your financial numbers or customer bases or anything. I'm guessing that you're working with a very small percentage of that 3 million or whatever the big number is of number of hosts that are out there. So you probably have a roadmap as to what you want with, your product. But, realistically, I still see people taking pictures with their dark cell phone pictures on Airbnb. Like, a market like us as people that are running a co-hosting business, there's just so many bad listings out there and it never seems to go away. So when is this going to be just everybody of course does this, just like logging into Airbnb, that they have this AI companion along with everything that they're offering?
Yeah, I'm really excited to see where this goes, and the way that I look at it is very similar to how dynamic pricing came about in the short-term rental space. I think there's still people that manually change all of their pricing, their rates for their listings. And they don't understand that just, plugging in a system to do all that manually can actually save you money and make you more money. And so I see it really similarly where like at the beginning, maybe there was a little bit of pushback saying, "Oh, I can do this myself." And then you realize that the benefit is so large to just implementing it into your business that, you're going to end up doing it in some way. And I think the technology is moving that way where AI is always improving. The capabilities of our software is always going to improve. And so I think once you see other hosts using it as well and seeing and hearing how effective it is, there's going to be more people jumping on that train. So yeah, I'm really excited to see where it goes. We're really focused on just improving our product as much as we can now to solve even more problems in the day to day. So we have a review removal feature that specifically is designed to detect bad reviews and then generate a report to go to the OTA to get that removed if it's based on, a biased situation or extortion or something like that that breaks the Airbnb review policy. So little things like that are based around the AI messaging that really just cut down a lot of your operational time and tasks that you're doing on the day to day. We're focusing on solving real problems in the space. So
What's neat is that you are a host yourself and you've kind of been in this space. So this product is developed by somebody, you and your team of people that were actually physically cleaning properties. We've been down that road before as well. Like, we always say we clean the property before we turn it over to a cleaner to turn over just to see the nuance of the properties. But, you're not a software developer that found an industry that you didn't really know too much about. You developed this from the ground up in the other way. Let's just to wrap things up, like let me ask one last question. Or Rory, do you have anything else for Jay before I get into my final question?
No, I mean, you kinda asked where I was gonna go next, what's coming next for you? We don't wanna date this, podcast too much because things change so much, but what's in your roadmap for the coming year?
Yeah, continuing to expand our partnerships with PMSs. Like I said, we partner, we integrate with 10 or 11 of them right now. But there's probably 100 PMSs out there, so we want to continue expanding that to reach to as many people as possible. Um, just continue getting our product out there because we really believe in what we've built. And once people start using it, they realize how powerful AI can be. So really, just educating people around how to implement this into your daily operations. Trying to speak at as many conferences and attend events as we can, just to give people an idea of what this looks like, as a host myself and somebody who's implemented it. So I think the ball is really starting to roll, and 2025 is going to be really big for AI in the short-term rental space.
If you could leave behind one lesson for the listeners here of Smart Say Show, like what would that be?
One lesson, I would say, there is a lot of people in the short-term rental space who had to learn from struggles and figure out a way to automate their processes. You and I and Rory probably being some of those people who, like, had to be in there cleaning their own properties and really figure out the struggles before going and automating those things. And I think one of the biggest regrets that I might have for certain parts of my business is not automating it sooner. And I think the lesson in that is that there are people out there who have created softwares that are going to make your life a lot easier. And I really hope that I'm doing that with HostBuddy. And so I think staying on top of your technology and really making sure that you are making your operations efficient, especially in a competitive space as short-term rentals, is going to be really important moving into the coming years.
HostBuddy.ai is the website. We're going to put all your links in the show notes here. Jay, you are our resident AI expert at this point. So we really appreciate your coming on the show and accepting that title, which we hope that you wear proudly as you speak across the globe. And yeah, I can't wait to meet you in person, like at one of these conferences. Like we don't go to all of them, but we're at some of them. So if I see you, I'll come up and say hi.
Absolutely. I'll be around. Thanks so much for having me, Jason and Rory. It's really been great. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks,
my
Joe.
pleasure. And Rory, rorygill.com will get your website involved as well. urbanvillagelegal.com, I should also say that one. Thank you for listening to the show. If you've enjoyed this episode, we would love it if you subscribe to the show, and we love 5-star reviews because, Jay, we always have to ask for the review, right?
Yep.
Thanks so much. It's been a pleasure for having you on the show, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.